Okay, now we're going to deal with the family Mustelidae. This is the fourth family of caniform carnivores that we're going to deal with. This is a very diverse family with everything in it from weasels to otters to mink and badgers. And I've got 5 different taxa here that I'm going to introduce you to. Now, I also, this family you're going to need to study up. You need to study them all, but if you study this one in your lab manual, you'll see the diversity that's involved. According to Patton, this family also includes things like wolverines and fishers. So there's a lot of diversity in here. But according to Kelton Patton, there are 22 genera and about 57 species. But they say molecular analysis support 8 distinct clades in this family. So a tremendous amount of diversity. So the if I'll refer you to page 271 in your, it's pages 269 to 271 to get a better understanding of these animals, these amazing animals. A beautiful otter skin right here. This is a river otter, Lontra canadensis. Lontra canadensis. That canadensis should not be capitalized. That's an oversight there. Let's take a quick look at the skull of Lontra here. One thing you'll notice about many of these mustelids is that their lower jaw articulates very closely with the upper jaw, so much so that the lower jaw is often locked to the upper jaw. So they've got a very rigid bite, and they're very efficient carnivores. This is Lontra canadensis, of course, is a fish eater, and they eat other things too, like shellfish and crayfish and things like that. But these are very accomplished fish catchers. Another thing I want you to notice about the mustelids here is even though the skulls seem, you'll see in some of the others that they seem a little elongate. Their snouts are relatively short. They don't have a big long rostrum like you see in the dog family, the canids, and also their palate is fairly long. The palate here extends on the upper jaw here. You can see the palate, and it extends behind the rearmost molar teeth. See, it extends all the way back to here. So the palate is pretty long. And that differs from the skunk skull that we saw in the last video, but I'll show you the skunk skull again when I get to look at the mink skull, which is about the same size. But anyway, just to think about this is the brain, the cranium back here. That's the eye socket. Eye socket is right there. So you can see the eyes are right at the front, and you can see it here in the skin too. The eyes are right around here. Here's the snout and so on. So much of the head is way back here behind the eyes and the jaws. So another otter I want to introduce you to is our glorious sea otter, Inhydra lutris. This is an amazing animal that was brought back from the brink of extinction, and they have a very unusual skull. This is a very robust. It's a short skull again. See, the eyes are here in the front, and this is the snout. The snout is very shortened. But check out these teeth. They have formidable choppers in here, but they're not cecodon teeth like you'd see in a typical carnivore and in many mustelids. These are grinding teeth, where they grind up shellfish and bustings, but they have a very powerful bite. Look at the big sagittal crest here where muscles are detached. So this is the sea otter. California sea otter. So we don't have a skin, and actually this is a model of a skull, but if you remember back, a sea otter has the densest fur of any mammal. So that's the sea otter. Very distinctively shaped skull. Pull it out here so you can get a better look at it. It's blocky. See how blocky it is? So this is the sea otter. Okay, we're going to move down the bench here and take a look at some weasel-like animals now. This is one of the most formidable killers in North America. Carnivores, predatory carnivores, maybe I should call it. Okay, this is the long-tailed weasel, Mustela frenata. These animals are so accomplished at predation, and they're amazing to watch. Look at the little paws there on its front feet. They don't have big claws or anything. They have a long fusiform-like body and fairly long tail, often with a black tip on it here, you can see. And these are incredible. They're some of my favorite animals to watch in nature if you get a chance to see them. They'll go down burrows after kangaroo rats if the burrow or ground squirrels. They'll also take rabbits, and they can take a rabbit that weighs 2 or 3 times as much as they weigh, and they will just grab it by the throat and they'll just strangle it, and then they'll just haul that thing back to a safe place for it to eat or to give it to young. And this is the skull. Now, remember the last one we talked about? Again, they have a fairly shortened rostrum or snout here, but the teeth are really cecodont. These are the teeth of a true predator. And be careful with this one. This is a real skull. And let me see if I can zoom in on it without making it shake too much. So you can see the skull is not completely clean. There's a little bit of tissue still hanging on, but you can see the well-developed carnassials there and the cecodont teeth in front of it. And those are big canines for an animal this small. So these are true killers and predatory carnivores. They'll take other small mammals. See how the palate extends behind the upper teeth, like I was talking about? Okay, amazing animals, these weasels. And this is the long-tailed weasel, Mustela frenata. There's also another weasel called the least weasel, and it's also called ermine, and they're the ones that change color. Actually, I think some Mustela frenata may change color in areas where there's snow. I have to double check on that, but the least weasel definitely does. It in areas where it snows, they turn pure white. Their fur turns pure white in winter, so that they can hunt small mammals in the snow and not be seen. Now we're going to look at a bigger weasel, and this is the mink. And this is your typical mink. Here, this is what mink coats used to be made from. Still are, I guess. And these are semi-aquatic animals, or they're not as aquatic as otters, but they readily hunt in water and near water, and rivers, lakes, streams, and so on. Scientific name is Neovison. Neovison bison. I think the genus name is misspelled there. Yeah, there should be no I after the S. They were introduced to my home country in Ireland. Actually, they've been introduced to a number of countries because they escaped from fur farms, and they can create havoc with local waterfowl and other native species. And this is the skull of the mink. This is an actual skull, DFW, for Dan Williams, who's a professor here, is retired now. And let me put them upside down and we can try to zoom in on them. But again, these are the jaws of a predatory carnivore. This one is fairly old. There's a lot of tooth wear on it. But note the palate extends well past, well behind the rearmost molars. So it comes all the way back to here, the upper palate. Let's look at, this is the, I have here with me the striped skunk skull that we just looked at a few minutes ago. And we'll look at the family Mephidae, unlike family Mustelidae here. And here you can see the difference in the palate between the two families. You can stop knocking these around. See the skunk palate ends right at the rear of the, right where the teeth end. Teeth row ends right there. So this is the skunk, and here you see the similarly shaped mink skull, somewhat similar anyway, and the palate is extending well behind the tooth row here. So that's one way to tell these skulls apart. But the skunk skull too is more robust. It's not as elongate as the mink. And I got one more here as well. This is an actual model of a mink skull, so it's cleaner. Just zoom in a bit on this. Here you can see the teeth. It's not too exposed. Sorry, that's a bit blurry. Can't get it to focus properly on the white background. Okay, so those are the two mink-like creatures that we just looked at, the or two weasel-like creatures, the long-tailed weasel, Mustela frenata, and then the mink. This is a different kettle of fish here. This is also in the Mustelidae, and this is an American badger, Taxidia taxus. That's a very distinctive scientific name, Taxidia taxus. I have to figure out what that means sometime, because I honestly don't know. Before we look at the skull, look at the powerful claws on this thing for digging. So badgers are formidable diggers, and so much so that they often hunt in collaboration and cooperation with coyotes. So they will dig into a ground squirrel burrow complex. The badger will do the digging, and when the ground squirrels come flying out of there and trying to escape, the coyote will catch them. But the badger usually gets them as well, so it's a kind of a cooperative relationship. It's seen frequently, it's been documented many times. So anyway, let's take a look at this skull. Now, this skull bears some similarity to the sea otter skull, or kind of cross between the sea otter skull and the river otter skull. But again, these have a powerful jaw that just articulates very strongly. It pretty much locks together. The lower jaw locks to the upper jaw. This is an older individual, judging by the tooth wear on those teeth at the back. See it up here. And this canine is broken. The right upper canine is broken. There's some breaks in these as well. But you can see how much more heavily built this jaw is, or this skull is. And it's got the sagittal crest here, and then these other crests coming across the upper back side of the skull as well. So if you look at it, it's very distinctive and different from the fox skulls that you saw. And you're going to see a raccoon skull in the next video that is more rounded and is quite different. I've got another skull here. This one was glued back together. I think this animal was shot. And it's not quite as heavily built as the one we just looked at, but it's a younger animal. See, the teeth are not nearly as damaged in this one. They're not nearly as worn, the cheek teeth. The canines are broken, but that's probably just wear and tear over the years in the lab. So there we have it. We've looked at 5 different species, members of the Mustelidae. So that's, out of about 60 species in the family, we've seen quite a few here. And I'll add too that one of the nice things about living in California is the biodiversity here at all levels, from invertebrates to mammals and plants too, of course. But carnivores are very well represented in the state. The only major native carnivore that is no longer here. Well, wolves are starting to come back in, so they were extirpated too. But is the grizzly bear, the brown bear. But most of what we're seeing here are local California species. Okay, now we're going to move on to the raccoon family, the Procyonidae.